Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. This is Omar, Khalid. But today is the 4th of August 2023, a day before the Yom-e-Istihsal, which is going to be considered as a black day for all of the Kashmiris and for Pakistan as well, to pay tribute to all those Kashmiris who have been striving for their right to self-determination. Our first segment also concerns the United Nations Security Council resolutions concerning the right to self-determination for the Kashmiris. Now, Pakistan has stressed for the implementation of the United Nations Security Council's resolutions on Jammu and Kashmir. While speaking in the United Nations Security Council high-level open debate on famine and conflict-induced global food security in New York, the Deputy Permanent Representative of Pakistan to the United Nations, Ambassador Amir Khan, has called for a UN-supervised plebiscite in the Indian held valley so that the people can determine their right to self-determination. And of course, this is a basic human right that is being denied to them by the Indian government. This is going to be our first segment, the implementation of the UNSC resolutions on Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the plight of Kashmiri mass rape survivors. We all know how the women are being treated in the Indian illegally held valley, how the women are not are being subjected to torture, are being subjected to rape, are being subjected to all kinds of human brutalities. And this is something that has also been highlighted in a report by the Kashmir Media Service on the occasion of International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict. This is going to be our second story. Then we'll be talking about the National Police Martyrs Day that is being observed today. The nation has been honoring and will continue to honor the brave fighters of the nation that are on the front line of Pakistan's defense and also have always stopped many nefarious activities from happening, and many have also rendered their lives for the defense of our motherland and for our people. Let's begin with our very first segment, and that concerns the Pakistan's desire, the Pakistan's role as far as highlighting the implementation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are concerned. There are various resolutions in the UNSC as far as that is concerned, and that was something that was highlighted recently by Deputy Permanent Representative of Pakistan to the United Nations, Ambassador Amir Khan Saab, who has called for a United Nations supervised plebiscite while talking on famine and conflict-induced global food security in New York. Brigadier retired Shahid Jagir Saab, who is a senior analyst, joins us online. Sir, thank you very much to have joined us, and of course, tomorrow is going to be a very important day because it's the Yom-e-Istihsal Kashmir, but it's also a remembrance, a reminder for all of those who have not been implementing the United Nations Security Council resolutions on Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. How do you find the Indian attitude as far as the complete disregard of international law is concerned when it concerns the Indian held valley?
Thank you very much for inviting me. And it's you have very rightly elaborated in your intro that the United Nations Security Council has passed about 12 resolutions on the dispute of the Jammu and Kashmir. Important one are UN Resolution 39, 47 and 51. In which it clearly states that it will, the dispute will be decided by mutual consensus of the people of the Jammu and Kashmir by holding a free and fair plebiscite. Now, also it says, UN Security Council Resolution 51 says that the dispute will be resolved for maintaining international peace and security. Now, two things are very important in these resolutions. One is that no decision on the Kashmir dispute will be taken by any side unilaterally. One. Second is that it will be decided by the will of the people by holding the plebiscite, which India has totally disregarded all in the last 70 years or so. Despite this fact, the world community has not been able to take any action on this. And time and again, I was reading the statement of the US yesterday that India and Pakistan should resolve the issue by talking to each other. This means that India has no regard for the United Nations Security Council resolutions. That means that it does not want to act as a responsible member of the world community in the new world order. Second is that the present geopolitical environment present in the world uh, cannot afford any dispute between India and Pakistan, uh, especially in the backdrop of that they both are credible nuclear countries.
That is true, but Brigadier Saab, you pointed out two important things: the New World Order and the geopolitical situation, in which two nuclear states cannot afford to go to any kind of a conflict-like situation. But of course, there is a conflict-like situation, but an aggravation of that conflict-like situation. In all of this situation, don't you feel that the global North knows, understands that, because many of the important members of the United Nations Security Council are from the global North? Then why is not a tangible decision being taken when it comes to Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
You have put across a very pertinent question, which bogs the mind of the intellectuals of the world. That United Nations Security Council is a council of all the members of the world, which abide by a rule and obey to the orders of the United Nations Security Council. The main aim is to work together in harmony with each other and decide the disputes which are there in the world and between the countries according to the United Nations resolutions. But the problem is that United Nations is dominated by the US and the world, and present geopolitical environment, when we see that the India US rivalry in the trade and containment China policy, India emerged as a big stake and a big partner for the West and the US. The West and the US always has this attitude in their mind that their problem is the world problem, but the world's problems are not their problems. So that's why they don't want that this dispute, they don't put the pressure on India, they don't put any sanction on India. If they can put a sanction on Russia and other countries which are against the Ukraine, no, why can't they do it for India also, which is not abiding by the UN resolutions? And you see, from the last so many years, they have made the Kashmir a prison for the people. And now the G20 meeting, which they have decided to be holding in Jammu, and a few of the countries and even the United Nations has showed its reservations to, what I mean to say is, it is not that they do not know the problem, they know the problem, but it is just that they look the other side.
But you know, how long can one look the other side? If, as per the head of the Genocide Watch, this is the beginning of a genocide in India, specifically with regard to what is happening in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. When I would like to relate this to, of course, what our Deputy Permanent Representative of Pakistan to the UN also said, and this was an open debate on famine and conflict-induced global food security. Isn't the situation in the Indian-held valley going towards exactly that? Famine, food insecurity, because of the situation that is being perpetrated by the Indian government and the Indian forces?
Look, I would say, in my opinion, the environment which are prevailing, especially the Quad and the this China containment policy, it is being seen by India as a leverage to hegemon on the neighboring countries, and India has not mentally accepted the partition of Pakistan. I think the biggest role in this can be played by two countries. One, the Britain, which was the ruler at that time. Uh, they should come up along with the US and the other Western countries, that instead of looking just at the corporate interests which are there for these big countries in India, they should look at the human aspect of the thing. You look at the thing that there are over 200,000 people have been killed. So many are the women which have been made widow. There is a disease, psychological disease going on in the woman over there. So it is a high time that the United Nations and the West should compel the India to come to terms, come to the table and decide about the thing.
But
Moreover,
Brigadier Saab, you say that the West and the US should compel India to come, and make the important decisions regarding the fate of the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. But India is adamant that it does not want to do that. I mean, for example, the whole case of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is a contested. This is a contested region, as per all the various UN resolutions that you have yourself alluded to as well during the course of this discussion. But the fact remains that India does not want to talk about it. India says that what is happening in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is a unilateral issue of India and does not pertain to Pakistan or any other third party. If India is adamant to not look the other way, to not look at the side of the truth, and let the normal course of things prevail in the way that they should, then how can they be convinced to do otherwise?
That's why I say the United Nations has a bigger role now. This is the organization which can pass the order, which can give the member states the resolution that they must adopt for as I have said that in one of the resolution, it is that for the security of international peace and order, this dispute must be resolved amicably. But it is not being done. Why? Because the veto power members of the UN are not interested because of to resolve this issue, because they have stakes in India, and this is absolutely inhuman. And when they do not see the brutalities committed by the Indians in the Indian occupied Kashmir, and they do not compare it with the human rights which they have in the north of Atlantic. They highlight the brutalities being committed in the Ukraine, but they do not highlight the brutalities being committed by the Indian armed forces in Indian occupied Kashmir. They can do it if the UN passed this resolution that India hold a plebiscite. You see the situation, the factual situation on the ground is that the UN mission on India and on Kashmir, military observer group, in Pakistan, they can go give the access up to the line of control, but India do not give them access to cross even the Jammu. What to talk of the line of control? So that is a very stubborn attitude of the Indians, which the world and the UN is tolerating. They are not listening. They are not in any international law or any law of any word in the on the earth, they are not ready to listen to this. So that is an agony that the word we are seeing, that despite all our effort, all our effort of our foreign office, irrespective of the which is the party which is the politically leading the country, we are one on this thing, that there should be a plebiscite in Kashmir. The Indian should be held accountable for the military brutalities which they have committed in the Indian occupied Kashmir, and they should be brought to the justice, and justice must be given to the Kashmiri people.
Justice needs to be given to the Kashmiri people. This is what Pakistan has been highlighting on many a different fora across the world, regionally and internationally. But the fact remains that we don't see anything happening to that effect as far as Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. Whose responsibility does it become? You talk about the United Nations, but apparently its resolutions have not been implemented. Then are there other organizations like for example, the OIC, like for example, the SCO, like for example, other important fora like ASEAN? Do you feel they can exert some kind of pressure on India to implement the right policies as far as the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is concerned?
I think the best forum over here, out of the few which you have mentioned, is the OIC, because India has stake in all the Muslim countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Turkey, and others, and now the Russia. They are the one which can, even the China, they are the one which should come together, form a consensus, and especially the Muslim countries should press them in terms of economic sanctions, in terms of oil embargo, in terms of the employment which they have in these countries. So they are the one which can put pressure on India to come to the negotiation table and decide the Jammu and Kashmir issue as per the United Nations resolutions, and hold a free and fair, impartial elections over there.
All right. Now, Brigadier Jagir, I would also like to understand the link between the Kashmiri freedom movement that is being going on in the Indian Hill Valley and the different ways and maneuverings through which the Indian government and the Indian forces are trying to crush this freedom movement. One of that is economic deprivation and food insecurity. How important is that? Is the world also watching?
Look, India has very cleverly converted and convinced the world that the Kashmiri freedom struggle is the terrorism. And this, since they are Muslim, therefore they are getting the aided by Pakistan, which is absolutely a wrong perception. You see all the people, those who have been martyred, are Kashmiris. They are doing their own freedom struggle. And in the charter of the UN, the freedom struggle is the right of every individual. When his basic right, human rights are denied, he has the right to do that. Unfortunately, India has been cleverly being maneuvering this thing and talking about that terrorism is being eliminated by Pakistan. Now you see the Indian Foreign Ministry's statement after our Prime Minister announced that Pakistan is ready to talk to India on Kashmir and all. They still again said that it is it cannot be done to the time terrorism being exported. So that is what is the fact of the ground is. And the world is not listening what the India is doing with Pakistan in Balochistan. Their one military armed forces monkeys with us, which is a credible evidence that India is involved in terrorism in Pakistan. To counter this, they are terming this freedom struggle as terrorism. Uh, and after what they have done in Article 35 and others, that is absolutely not acceptable in the Indian Constitution. And not only in Kashmir, you see the same thing happening all over India, especially in Manipur and others. But the world
Haryana,
is just
Haryana.
looking the other way.
Of course, the fact remains, Brigadier Shahid Jagir Sahab, that India can continue to do whatever it wants as far as human rights abuses are concerned, and the world looks the other way. A lot of human rights organizations talk about these atrocities, but the world looks the other way. Genocide Watch talks about the beginning of genocide in India. The world looks the other way. But when India will actually implode from the inside because of the repercussions of these brutalities, will the world look away? This is my big question, and I hope that the audience and yourself and all the other powers that be will ponder on that. Thank you very much, Brigadier Shahid Jagir Sahab, Senior Analyst, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the implementation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, something that has been highlighted again because this is what Pakistan has been doing since quite some time, and now this time this was a Deputy Permanent Representative of Pakistan to the United Nations, Ambassador Amir Khan, who called for a United Nations sponsored and supervised plebiscite. Let's see if and when that happens. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns also Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where women are the worst victims of the Indian forces' barbarities, as New Delhi uses rape as a weapon of war to suppress the Kashmiris' right to self-determination. More in the following report.
Women are the worst victims of Indian forces' barbarities in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, as New Delhi is using rape as a weapon to suppress the Kashmiri struggle for the right to self-determination. A report released by Kashmir Media Service on the occasion of International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence and Conflict revealed that Indian forces personnel had sexually assaulted over 11,259 women during the last 34 years in the occupied territory. The report highlighted that Kunanposhpura mass rape, Shupanya double rape and murder of a minor girl in Kathua depict the brutal face of Indian forces deployed in the occupied territory. Around 100 women were gang raped by Indian troops during a cordon and search operation in Kunanposhpura area of Kupwara district on the night of 23rd of February 1991. Over 24 women are facing illegal detentions and mental torture in Indian jails. Rape most often occurs during crackdowns, cordon and search operations during which men are held for identification in parks or schoolyards while security forces search their homes. Kashmiris would never forget the horrific incidents of mass rape in Kunanposhpura and several other such inhumane incidents in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and world women rights organizations have to raise their voice in support of the Kashmiri women.
To discuss this, we've been joined by Kaswar Klasra, who's a senior journalist. Thank you very much, Kaswar, to have joined us. Kaswar, when you look at this report on the occasion of International Day of Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict, does that come as a surprise to you when you look at the figures, the actual figures of the women who've been raped in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
Well, let me tell you, Omar, it's nothing new in this report. Let me tell you very, very clearly, because the world knows that thousands of, the Kashmiri women have been raped by this security forces, Indian security forces as well. And something is bad over there as well, given the such type of reports, and I will hold United Nations responsible for all of what's happening there in Kashmir as well. Can you imagine thousands of the Kashmiri women that have been raped by the security forces over there? The number of security forces had reached to 1 million over there as well in a very small territory. I think this is something which the United Nations must hold an inquiry into this happening as well. But the report that you have rightly pointed out, that is nothing particular. I am not panic on the report as well.
All right. Now, Kaswar, the term conflict-related sexual violence as per the report refers to rape, sexual slavery, forced prostitution, forced pregnancy, forced abortion and forced sterilization, forced marriage and any other form of sexual violence perpetrated during conflict. Isn't what is happening in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir a classic case of all of this and more?
Exactly, Umar. You have rightly pointed out. As I told you earlier, it has been happening over there since the very first day the first Indian boat arrived there in Kashmir as well. And I have the figure, 13,000 women have been raped over there. And these are the figures, just they were raped by the Indian security forces. I'm not talking about the murder. I'm not talking about the abortion. I'm not talking about anything else. Just the rape. Imagine. So these numbers could not even, wake the United Nations and other champions of the human rights. It's a shame. Let me tell you. I'm very sorry to, select these words, but I am dejected. I am, shocked that even what to talk about Kashmir, even in the capital of, the world, the biggest so-called biggest democracy, the women have been raped in the mass transit, in the buses, in the trains, and what to talk about Kashmir. But as the report the report has done some shocking revelation, but I am sad to know that even this kind of report could not even wake the champions of human rights, either in New Delhi, either in United Nations, or either in New York and Washington D.C. as well. I don't know what make the world to keep silence on such type of reports. Thousands of people, thousands of the women have been raped, Umar. It's not usual. It is an unusual and shocking revelation. I think this is the high time for the United Nations of organization to call a full-fledged mood to discuss what's happening there in Kashmir. Even Omar, that we have been reporting the facts on Kashmir for a long time, but at the present, Srinagar is not safe. Srinagar is not safe. I was talking to some of my friends over there in Delhi, and I was shocked to know that there are some organizations which have actually warned their women members not to travel to Srinagar because that is not safe. Even the capital is not safe. What to talk about the other countrysides as well. So it is the classic example of force and all of the points that have been revealed by this report as well. But sadly, I am not sure the United Nations or the champions of human rights will wake up, follow this report as well. Omar.
But Kaswar, these champions of human rights need to really wake up and take action. I understand all the reports that are being made, all the statements that are being made, but those statements need to be translated into action. Another thing I'd like your point of view on, there is a very important and strong Kashmiri resistance movement that is going on in the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir that the Indian forces and the Indian government is trying to thwart in any way possible. Do you feel the rape of the Kashmiri women is one of the tools that they are using to try to suppress this Kashmiri movement?
Exactly. This is one of the tools that the Indian occupied, the forces have been using to suppress their struggle as well. But I think that we must appreciate all of the people who have been the part of these protests and anti-Indian protests and freedom fighting movement, that even such type of horrible crime could not deter their determination as well. And kudos to them. I must appreciate all the freedom fighters over there because this is a heinous crime. Can you imagine? I know a freedom fighter over there whose wife and little sister were raped by the Indian security forces, but still he did not, it did not deter his determination as well. His house was set on fire, Umar. His house on set on fire. the wife was raped, the little sister was raped before her, sadly, before the mother as well. So can you imagine the agony and the pain of this family? But we must appreciate that freedom fighters who could not, even he has to face the trauma, but he did not, give up. So it is a story of every second, the family over there, and I believe, and I have the information as well, that the young Kashmiris have stood up against these type of atrocities, and I am sure that within a couple of years we will see the good news from Kashmir as well, because when youngsters stand up against the atrocities of 1 million, the security forces, well-armed, well-guarded security forces, it is a high time for them, and I think within a couple of years, the struggle of the young Kashmiris will bear fruit, Omar.
Now, when it comes to sexual harassment, hate speech against women, and actions against women, whether it comes to conflict-ridden areas such as in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the digital media is being very effectively used, especially in India. But on the other hand, when it comes to anything that criticizes the Indian actions in any illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, otherwise, the same digital media is censored at the very earliest. Why aren't the big tech giants across the world that handle such social media platforms not taking effective actions, A, in order to highlight these sexual traumas that are happening in India and in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and B, to stop suppressing the truthful reporting on such activities?
Omar, let me drag your attention to a rape case that had happened in Mumbai. In Mumbai, I'm talking about a rape case in Mumbai. Even then, when the social media and the big, the news organization tried to highlight, they were forced on by the Modi government. And even when we talk about such type of cases there in Mumbai and Delhi, and the crackdown was unleashed on on such platform, what can you expect from Modi government to do there in Srinagar and other parts of Kashmir as well? So it is natural that the Modi Sarkar what Modi Sarkar have been doing over there in Kashmir. But I think it's the high time for the United Nations to intervene, because Modi government have unleashed crackdown in New Delhi and Mumbai. So what to expect from this first regime in Kashmir, in Srinagar and other parts of Kashmir as well? So this is the high time. I am stressing on this point particularly, Omar. This is the high time for the United Nations and the other champions of right to stand up and focus what's happening there in Kashmir in terms of forced disappearances, forced and rape crimes as well. I think this is a high time for the champions of human rights to stand up at least get experience from the youngsters, young Kashmiris as well. They need to learn from the young Kashmir whose sisters, whose mother have been raped before their eyes, but still they did not give up. So this is the high time for the United Nations to intervene. And again, I would stress, if a fast regime can crack down in New Delhi and the Mumbai, what to expect from the same regime in Srinagar and other parts of occupied Kashmir as well. So I feel these numbers of this fast regime have been numbered as well, because given that the Kashmiris have been putting more the struggle to get freedom from this fast regime as well, and these rapes and these types of atrocities could not deter their determination. I believe within a few years, we will be getting good news from this occupied territory as well.
All right, but Kaswar, what I wanted to also ask was how important is the role of tech giants, the social media giants across the world, in order to highlight all of these atrocities and also stop suppressing information on these atrocities when it comes to India? Because I mean, I would like to combine this with the United Nations day of the elimination of sexual violence in conflict. You know, 19th of June 2015, the UNGA had proclaimed the 19th of June each year as International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict. The role of the United Nations also becomes very important, as is the role of the tech giants. Do you feel they need to act more responsibly in the wake of all these incidents that are happening in the Indian Hill Valley?
Exactly. You're rightly put it, and you raised a very valid point as well. Because in this era, the crackdown on the social media and the press freedom has been the subject of United Nations as well, and a lot of a number of world level, international level, organizations have played this very well as well. But I think this is a high time for Champion of Pride, United Nations, and other other institutions to hold the Modi government responsible for it, and also force them to lift pressure on social media and other the organization as well. But this is the high time, because the Modi's fast regime have been silencing their critics in Mumbai, in Delhi, in Noida, in other parts of states as well. So Kashmir is not exception at all. But this is the right time for Pakistan and other organizations of Islamic countries to help these oppressed Kashmiris, and they must get in touch with the United Nations and other other organizations, other countries like United States, the European, to at least ask, to at least hold this false regime to kindly to at least lift the sanctions of social media and press freedom as well. But it is a daunting task. I'm not sure if these organizations can can ask, can hold Modi's regime possible as well. But you have raised a very valid point, because social media has played very important role either in Middle East, either in the Russia, and everywhere as well. Social media is a tool, but as you know, as you are well aware, that Modi's regime have been cracking down on social media, and everybody that has ever stood against the false regime as well. A collective support is needed, either by the United Nations or Organization of Islamic Countries. Pakistan has done very well. The foreign minister Bilawal Bhutto has done remarkable job a couple of months back in United States when he highlighted the atrocities by the Indian security forces there in Kashmir as well. So it is a high time to unleash a collective effort by at the United Nations platform to hold this past Modi regime responsible for all of the atrocities that its security forces have been doing there in Kashmir as well. This is the high time to raise this issue, Omar.
But I want to really pinpoint some major incidents that have happened as far as sexual violence on women in India are concerned. And I'd like to begin with Kunanposhpura and the mass rape that happened there. Do you feel, and I'm sure you would, I know your answer, but do you feel that the forces are using rape of women as an instrument of state terrorism?
One of the biggest instruments, Omar, one of the biggest instruments the Indian occupied, the forces have been using. I told you earlier that I know a freedom fighter whose wife was raped, whose little sister was raped by these forces, just to pressurize him to give up, but he never gave up. And I know a number of other freedom fighters that has passed through the same trauma as well. But you have rightly pointed out, and you know my answer as well, that exactly such type of violence, sexual violence against the women in Kashmir is one of the basic tools that the Indian security forces had been using this in this occupied, the territory. It has to be stopped. But the thing is, United Nations and other champions of human rights will have to unleash a collective effort to stop them. And I am sure if ever, God forbid, if they fail to do that, then the freedom fighters, the freedom movement, and the young Kashmiri would do it, Omar. And within a couple of years, you will see.
But you know, Kaswar, you also pointed out, but I'd also like to point out again, because this sexual violence against women is highlighted in the Indian Hill Valley, but is also going on in other parts of India, whether it be in Manipur, whether it be in Madhya Pradesh. This is institutionalized violence against women that is being so effectively used by the Indian forces and the Indian government as a tool to suppress different kinds of movements in India. Do you feel this is going to go towards a culmination that will go against India as a so-called democratic country, against the Indian government, against the Indian forces?
Omar, before Modi's regime, we were aware that this type of strategy was used by the Indian security forces there in Indian occupied Kashmir passing. But soon after Modi came into power, we had seen that his party, Janta and RSS, they have implemented same strategy on each and everyone across India, whoever stand or try to stand in front of Modi's first regime as well. Whoever actually stood against Modi, whether in Kashmir, Srinagar, whether in Mumbai, Manipur, or even in the state capital, New Delhi as well, their families were subjected by the RSS, the member of RSS, they had implemented same strategy as well. Now, we are facing two-dimensional trauma. That is, on the one hand, near to millions security forces have been subjecting the Kashmiri women to sexual violence or one thing, and on the other hand, the Modi's regime is using the same strategy, whoever takes stand against the Modi regime as well. So I think some sane voices are coming from across the Indians as well, but it is sadly the first Modi regime is implementing this strategy across India, and so obviously this has been going on in Indian occupied Kashmir for years as well. I don't see any sort of stoppage in this era as well. But as I told you earlier, when we talk about Kashmir, definitely I am expecting the young Kashmiris to knock down at these near to 1 million security forces as well, and within a couple of years we will be getting some good news as well. But regarding your question, it is the high time for the organization, even in India as well, but they are disappointed because this strategy of sexual violence is actually now being implemented by the supporters of Modi across India as well. As you have rightly pointed out, what happened there in Mumbai, what happened there in Gujarat, what happened there in Manipur as well. Same strategy was implemented by the Modi-led, police and also RSS that is actually being, supervised by Modi.
But Kaswar, the fact remains that we can highlight it as much as we want. We can highlight it to the global north, we can highlight to the international organizations, but the responsibility, the onus of responsibility comes on them, on the global north, on the important countries that be, on the members of the United Nations Security Council, on those who have direct relations with India, to pressurize India to revert its tactics as far as the human rights abuses, whether it be in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir or elsewhere within India, to stop these the usage of rape and violence against women as a tool that is being used since decades. Let's hope for a better solution. Let's hope for the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's hope for the best. Thank you so very much, Kaswar Klasra, senior journalist, to have talked to us and to have joined us to talk about the violence against women in conflict-ridden areas, specifically when it comes to Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and of course other parts of India as well, whether it be Manipur or Madhya Pradesh. Let's come to our last story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the National Police Martyrs' Day that is being observed today all across Pakistan to honor the brave fighters of the nation who have laid down their lives for the defense of the country, for the defense of our nation, for the defense of all the people of our country. We are so proud of all our police personnel who work day and night, sometimes 24/7, to stop any nefarious activity from affecting us Pakistanis, whether we be in any part of Pakistan. On the occasion of this very important day, the caretaker Punjab Chief Minister Mohsin Naqvi has expressed profound admiration and respect for the remarkable sacrifices made by all the police martyrs. At the same time, our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has also paid glowing tributes to the police personnel who embraced martyrdom to protect the lives and properties of the people. Our Prime Minister said the people of Pakistan can never forget the sacrifices of their martyrs, and we should never forget the sacrifices. These are the people who toil day in and day out in order to save us from all such elements that are wreaking havoc or could wreak havoc in our country. We need to pay tribute to them every day of our lives, because this is how we lead a normal life, because of these very people, whether it be the police or whether it be our forces. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you, of course, tomorrow with a special on the 5th of August and then on Monday. Till then, have a safe evening. Allah Hafiz.